Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Sophiat and I share detailed sewing tutorials to help you create stylish and professional outfits right from the comfort of your home. Now, this video is extra special because we are finally starting the Cupped Corset Blouse series. Yeah, because this tutorial is one of the most highly requested tutorial on this channel, and I've decided that you know what, let's do it once and for all. So in order not to overwhelm every one of us with so much information at once, I've decided that I'm going to divide this particular tutorial into 5 parts. The first part, which is today, we are going to be drafting the base for this blouse you're seeing on me right now. So we are going to be drafting the base pattern. So the next tutorial, we are going to be working on our cup pattern, how to modify it and give it a little bit of volume to create that cup effect. So if this is something you are interested in, I would urge you to stay with me till the end. Subscribe even if you have not, because I'm going to be giving you guys a lot of information, and I promise you by the end of this series you are going to be able to draft your own corset pattern, create a beautiful copy, bust cups, you understand? So share my video with your friends and your sewmates. Let them learn 1 or 2 things from here. So without wasting much of our time, let's get started with today's tutorial. So to start with, I've gone ahead to mark out some lines here, as you can see. So the first thing I did was to divide my pattern paper into 2 equal parts. This is because I'm going to be doing the front and the back pattern together. The next thing I did was to mark margin line on the side. So all my horizontal measurements will be starting from this margin line. At the top, I came down by ½ inch. This is going to be a margin line and also my shoulder line, and all my vertical measurements will be starting from there. The next line you are seeing here is my chest line. To get my chest line, the first thing I did was to do my shoulder divided by 2. My shoulder is 15.5. 15.5 divided by 2 gave me 7.75. So I marked that on my shoulder line and extended it downward. So the next thing I did was to mark my neck width, standard neck width of 3 inches. Then from here, I came down by 1.5 for my shoulder slope and connected it into my neck width to create my shoulder slope. So to get my chest line, what I did was my bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 inch to get the chest line. Bust divided by 6 plus extra 1.5 inch. Please note that you are marking that from your shoulder slope. Now, notice that on my waistline here, I have done my zip bulge. So the zip bulge I usually do for myself is 1 inch, but the minimum you should do for is ½ inch. So my shoulder to waist for the back is 16 inches. Please take note of that. So from the waist, I came down by 9 inches to get my hip line. Now, my zip bulge of 1 inch, I connected it straight into my neck point like this with a straight line, and I connected it 1 inch above my hip line. This is totally optional. You can connect it straight into your hip if you want. Now, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to impute my bust measurement on the chest line. And my bust is 36. 36 divided by 4 gave me 9. So that 9 inches, I'm going to be marking it from this zip bulge line on the chest line. Okay, the reason why I'm marking from the zip bulge line is because I'm going to cut off the back of this zip bulge line anyways. So after imputing my bust divided by 4, I'm going to add extra ½ inch for ease allowance. Notice that we are drafting the back pattern, so ½ inch is the minimum you should do as ease allowance. If you're on the plus side, you can do 3/4 to 1 inch. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to go to the hip line and impute my hip divided by 4 measurements. Now, because we have added ease allowance to the bust, we need to add ease allowance to the hip line as well, and we are going to do a little bit of calculation to know how much ease allowance we need to add to the hip. So you are going to take your calculator now and press your hip measurement minus your bust measurement. If what you have is between 2 and below, that is 2 inches, or you have 1.5, 0.5 and below like that, the ease allowance you are going to add to your hip is 1 inch. But if after you do your hip measurement minus your bust measurement and you have 2.5, 3 inches or 4 inches or 5 inches and above, the ease allowance you are going to do to your hip measurement is 1/2 inch. So for me, my hip is 43 and my bust is 36. By the time I subtracted it, it gave me something around 7 inches. So that is above 2. So the ease allowance I'm adding to my hip is just 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to be connecting the hip point to the bust point like this with a broken line, and I'm going to be using my pencil. Please use a broken line. There is a reason why I'm doing that. So the next thing I'm going to do is the next line you're seeing in the middle here is my dart line. To get my dart line, all I did was my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. And I marked that from after the Z-budge line, okay? So I marked it like this. Then I extended the point up and downward. Just make sure you have a straight line here. So now we can move to the front pattern. For the front piece, as you can see, I'm going ahead to mark out some lines here as well. So I'm just going to put you through. At the top here, I have my margin line, which is my shoulder line. And at the center front here, I have my margin line as well. So the next thing I did was to impute my shoulder width divided by 2. So my shoulder width is 15.5. 15.5 divided by 2 gave me 7.75. So I marked that on the shoulder line and I extended it downward. The next thing I did was to impute my standard neck width of 3 inches. That is it that I have here. Then on this, my armhole line, I came down by 1.5 inch to create my shoulder slope. So from this 1.5 inch, I connected it into my neck width with a straight line to form my shoulder slope. So the next thing I did was to get my chest line. To get my chest line, all I did was divide my bust by 6, then add extra 1.5 inch, which gave me 7.5, and that is how I was able to get my chest line and created my armhole curve. Now, the next line you are seeing here is my shoulder to nipple measurement, which is 10.5. Then my shoulder to underbust measurement of 40 inches, and my shoulder to waist measurement for the back is 80 inches. Please note that my shoulder to waist measurement for the back is 16 inches, while that of the front is 18 inches. Please take note of that. Then from the waistline, I came down by 9 inches to get my hip line. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to impute my bust measurement on the chest line. So my bust is 36. 36 divided by 4 gave me 9 inches. So I marked that. Now I will need to add ease allowance to this as well. Now for the front piece, I'm going to be adding 1 inch ease allowance to the bust area. Remember that when I was doing the back, after I did my bust divided by 4, I added 1/2 inch ease allowance. So for the front, I'm adding 1 inch. So if you're on the plus side, you can maintain this 1 inch or even increase it to like 1.5. But for me, I'm going to be doing 1 inch for my bust for the front. Okay, now on the hip line, I'm going to impute my hip divided by 4 like this, and I'm going to be adding my 1/2 inch ease allowance again. Now whatever ease allowance you calculated when you're drafting the back pattern is the same one you're going to be using for the hip. It is constant, whether you're adding 1 inch or 1/2 inch. It is the same thing you are going to be adding to your front and the back on the hip. It is only on the bust part that it is different, whereby I added 1/2 inch at the back and 1 inch at the front. The reason why the front allowance on the bust is bigger is because of our bust. I hope you understand. That is why I added more ease allowance to the front part. I hope that answered your possible question that you might have. Now, the next thing we are going to do now is to create our side shaping and impute that on our pattern. So the first thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to measure what I have on the waistline for the front pattern and what I have on the waistline for the back pattern. So please make sure that, notice that I measured for the back from the zip budge down to the broken line, where the broken line is touching the waistline. And for the front piece, I measure from my margin line down to where the broken line is touching the waistline. So after I measured, I have 10.5 for the front and I have 9.5 for the back. So addition of the two gave me 20 inches. But the waist I'm working with is 29 inches. Okay, my real waist is 29 inches. Now what I'm supposed to have on the pattern paper is supposed to be 29 divided by 2, which is 14 inches. That is half of my real waist measurement is what I'm supposed to have on the pattern paper. But now I have 20 inches. So what this means is that I have excess on this pattern paper that I need to take out. Now, the amount of vertices on the pattern paper is, you're going to do whatever you measure on the pattern paper minus half of your real waist measurement, which gave me 5.5. So this 5.5 is the excess that I have on the pattern paper, and is what I'm going to be using to create my dart and do my side shaping. So the first thing we are going to be doing is to do side shaping. So to do the side shaping, all you have to do is this excess that you have, you are going to divide it by 4. So after I pressed my calculator, it gave me 1.375. So if you're wondering what is 1.375 on the tape, it is 3 lines after 1 inch mark. That is one small line before 1.5 inch mark. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. 3 lines after 1 inch mark is 1.375. So I'm going to be marking that from the broken line like this inward, and I'm going to be using my French curve and straight ruler to connect it like this to create my side shaping. Please just watch what I am doing. And if you want a more detailed tutorial on how to properly draft this pattern, like I said before, the link is going to be in the description box. Now, I'm done shaping the side for my back pattern. It is time to do the same thing for our front pattern. From where the broken line is touching the waistline, I'm going to go inward by 1.375, and I'm going to be using my French curve to connect it like this. Now, after I'm done with the side shaping, I'm going to measure what I have on the waistline again to be sure I have my 14.5 already. So I'm going to measure the same way from the center front like this down to my side shaping. And for the front, I have 9 inches. And I'm going to measure what I have from the side shaping down to the zip budge line for the back as well to see what I have. So after measuring, I have 8.25. So I'm going to add the two together now to be sure I have my 14.5 inches. So after I pressed my calculator, what I have is 17.25. But what I need is 14.5. So this means that I still have excess to take out on the pattern paper. Okay, now I'm going to calculate the new excess that I have by doing 17.25 that I have on the pattern paper minus the 14.5. So after doing that, I have 2.75. So this 2.75 is what I'm now going to use to create my dart for both front and back. So to create the dart, the first thing I'm going to be doing is this 2.75, I'm going to be dividing it by 5. I'll just press my calculator, and after I pressed my calculator, what I have is 0.55 inch. To get my dart allowance for the front, what I'm going to do is this 0.55, I'm going to multiply it by 3. After pressing my calculator, it gave me 1.65. Now, this 1.65, I'm going to round it up to 1.75, that is 1/3. And for the back, I did 0.55 times 2 to get 1.1. But I'm going to round it down to 1 inch. What matters is that at the end of the day, the addition of the two give me the total XX of 2.75. The reason why I rounded up for the front to 1.75 is because I need more allowance for the front anyway. So, and 1.75 is easier for me to read on my tape than 1.65. And for the back, that is 1.1 that I take down to 1 inch. I don't need so much that for the back, so I took it down. I hope you understand. And 1 inch is easier for me to read on my tape than 1.1. So now for the front 1.75, I divided it into 2 and mark it on both sides of my dart line. And to connect it up, I came down from my nipple line by 1.5 inch and connected it like this. So to connect it down, I'm going to take it straight into my hip point. You can decide to do 2 inches above your hip if you like, but for me, I like to connect it straight into my hip. So now I'm going to create my dart for the back. And remember, the dart allowance I got for the back is 1 inch. So 1 inch, I'm going to divide it into 2 to give me ½ inch on both sides of my dart line. So to connect the dart for the back up, I'm going to go up by 6 inches like this. Then I'm going to connect it with a straight line. Then I'm going to connect it down straight into my hip. If you like, you can go up by 2 inches if you want. But for me, this is how I like to do mine. So after doing this, if you measure what you have on your waistline for the front and your waistline for the back, excluding the dart allowance, you are going to have exactly half of your waist measurement. And you're going to notice that the front is a little bit bigger than the back. Now, it is time to create our underbust tightening. Now, to do my underbust tightening, the first thing I'm going to do is to measure my round underbust. When I measured it, it gave me 31 inches. So that 31 inches, I'll now divide it by 4. Then I'm going to measure it out on my underbust line, excluding the dart allowance, okay? Please, when you're measuring yours, make sure you leave the dart allowance out. So now I'm going to mark my 7.75. Now this is where it is, and you will notice that I still have XX left on my underbust line. So this XX is what I'm going to use to tighten my underbust. When I measured it, I think I have about 1.25. So this 1.25, I'm going to share it on both sides of my dart line. So I decided to do 1/2 inch towards the center front and 3/4 inch towards the side front. And please, when you are measuring your own, don't measure from the center line. Oh, we are measuring from the dart legs, okay? I can't remember if it is 1.25 I got or 1 inch, but just divide it. And when you are measuring it, measure it from this dart line, not from the center line, the dart legs, okay? And please connect it into your nipple to nipple divided by 2 points with a straight line, like I did. So that is the red line you are seeing there. So the next thing I'm doing now is to determine how high my cup is going to be. All I did was I measured what I have from my nipple to underbust, which gave me 3.5. I then mark it upward from my nipple. So I believe this is moderate. Anything higher than this, your cup is going to look funny. You can decide to reduce this measurement by 1/2 inch. But for me, all I did is I measured what I have from my nipple to underbust, then I projected it upward from my nipple. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to divide my shoulder slope into 2 like this. Then I'm going to connect this into my nipple point with a straight line like so. So after this, we are going to be doing our overbust tightening. But before we do that, we need to take care of the difference between our front waist length and the back waist length. Remember, I told you my front waist length is 18 inches and that of the back is 16 inches, which gave me a total of 2 inches difference. So this 2 inches is what I'm going to use to create my bust dart. So from the nipple line, I came down by 2 inches and I connected it into the nipple point like this. So now I will need to close this bust dart, but I will need to slash open either from the top or from the bottom. I prefer to slash from the top because I will need that shoulder dart. So now I am going to slash it like this. Notice that I have separated my pattern paper, that is the front and the back. I have separated them. This is just to make my work easy. So after slashing open down to the nipple point like this, I am now going to close this bust dart. Now, take note of the way I'm folding the dart. You'll see that I'm folding from the down part. That is, I'm folding the line at the down on top of the one at the up. This is how you should fold your dart. So now, after folding, you will notice that the side here, the line is no longer equal. I'm just going to go in with my ruler now to redraw the line. After closing the bust dart like this, I am going to be leaving it closed permanently. I won't be opening it up again. So there's no need for me to draw out the dart on the side. So now let's take care of our overbust tightening. So to do that, from this side, I'm going to be going in by 1 inch on both sides of this slashed part, okay? Just watch what I'm doing. I'm going to go in by 1 inch and I'm going to be connecting it into my nipple point with a broken line. Now, this broken line, make sure it touches your overbust line. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side as well. And I'm going to be using broken line to connect it into my nipple to nipple like this. Now, after doing this, the next thing you are going to do is from where the broken line is touching your overbust line, I am going to go out by 1/4 inch. The maximum you can do here is 1/2 inch. When I was making this blouse that you're seeing on screen right now, I used 1/2 inch to tighten the overbust tightening just the way I did. But for this tutorial, I decided to do 1/4 inch because one of my breasts is fuller than the other. So one breast was pressing when I wore that bustier blouse. But if that bustier blouse, you use half inch and it was okay for you, you can go ahead and use half inch here as well. So the next thing I'm going to be imputing now is to impute my nipple to side measurement. Mine is 5¼ So if you don't know how to measure your nipple to side, you can check my tutorial on how to take body measurement. I'm going to put the link in the description box for you guys to check it out, okay? Nipple to side measurement. Now I am going to use my French cuff to connect from my underbust like this. Just watch what I am doing, because drawing this was not easy. It didn't give me, like, my French cuff didn't later give me the, I shall manipulated my way to draw the curve. Just watch what I am doing, okay? The idea of this is that by the time we are done drawing the curve, but for the two side, we are trying to get something that looks like a U or a K. No, we are not trying to get something that looks like a square, all right? The idea is to get something that looks like a U or a Keno at most. The next thing I want to do now is to determine my bust bridge and how low do I want my cleavage to be. So for that, I'm going to be going 1 inch above my nipple line. This is because you can decide to maintain, ½ inch above my nipple line. You can decide to maintain your nipple line, but I don't want anything showing my boobs. That is why I decided to do ½ inch above my nipple line for the depth of my cleavage. And for my bust bridge, I did ½ inch and measured from the center front like this. So that is what I'm doing. I'm drawing out my bust bridge. So now it is time for me to draw the cuff, our cup cuff for the other side. So just place your French cuff. I would advise you to use your French cuff at this point, because I'm not a fan of freehand, okay? So like I told you, after you close these two like this, just watch what I'm doing. The idea, just close it, like just close it just to see what it looks like. The general idea of this is for us to get something that looks like a U or a Keno. Do you see what I'm closing? I'm closing the underbust tightening that's on each other, the point. I'm trying to close it on top of each other like this. The underbust tightening point, yes. So look at my own. My own is giving a Keno vibe. That is the worst you should have, okay? At least not a square. If you have a square, something is wrong with your curve. You need to redraw it. So now I'm done drawing the curve for my cup. It is time to draw the shape, the neckline we want for the overbust. But to do that, I will still need to close. I will need to close the overbust tightening dart, but I will need to slash open from the bottom. But before that, let me take care of the hem of my blouse. So for the hem of my blouse, at the center front, I came down by 6 inches, while on the side, I came down by 4½ inch from the waistline. So, and I used my French cuff to connect it like this. So now after covering it, I noticed that because of the slanted line, the dart leg one is longer than the other. All I did is I measured it and took care of the one that is shorter. Now I'm going to use my French cuff to redraw this line again, so that by the time I'm sewing it, I won't have one side longer than the other. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So now after doing this, I can go ahead to slash open the pattern from the bottom. Then I can close my overbust tightening dart so that I can draw the shape of my cup properly at the top. So what I'm doing now is I'm using my red marker to outline the actual thing that I want to cut. Now notice that my underbust tightening, I didn't connect it initially. Now I used a straight line to connect it into my waist. Just watch the red line that I just draw. The underbust tightening, I connected it into my waist. If you want to make your own, like a dartless corset, so just take whatever you took as the underbust tightening, take it straight down to the hem, and you're going to replace whatever shortage you have on the side again. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So now I've slashed open from the bottom. I can go ahead and close my overbust tightening darts like this. I hope you understand. Now I'm going to use my tape to secure it. Now I'll be able to draw whatever shape I want my cup to have at the top. Now, I want you to just watch what I am doing and take note of the way I'm placing my French curve. Actually, if you are good with your free hand, you can go ahead and use your free hand to do this. But for me, I'm a lover of my French curve, so I don't do anything without it unless it becomes compulsory that I use my free hand for something. So whatever shape you want to give it, maybe you want to do a round, you want to do whatever, just use your French curve to connect it. So now I'm trying to make sure I don't have anything pointy going on around here. So I'm using my French curve to draw it until I have a smooth curve. So now for the side, you can decide to connect it into your armhole like this. But for me, I'm going to be sticking with the way it is, the red line you're seeing. This is what I'm going to stick with because this actually covers more. Okay, it covers more. One last thing we are going to do is, because this blouse is going to have a sleeve, I'm going to measure the dart intake for my overbust tightening like this, everything that I have here. So whatever you have, when you measure it, half of it is what I'm going to be replacing on the armhole area, so that by the time I want to join my sleeve, it will not be looking funny. You don't have to replace, let's say the total that intake you did for your overbust is 2 inches. Like after you measure it, you don't need to replace the whole of the 2 inches on your armhole part. Just replace 1 inch. I think for me the total is 1 3/4, 1.5. So I replaced just 0.75. Okay, like this. And I'm going to redraw my armhole. This is the reason why we are replacing it, is because it doesn't look funny around the armpit part. I hope you understand. So what I'm just going to do now is I'm going to use my red pen to outline my curve, my cup shape very well, so that by the time I'm cutting out the pattern, I will know which part is my cup, which part is for the body. Okay. Now, please, I need you to pay attention to what I am doing, the way I am drawing the curve and the parts that I am going to be cutting out. All right. Now, one last thing I'm going to say is regarding this nipple to side measurement. Take, for example, if after you impute your own nipple to side measurement and it is getting to your side seam line like this, you should not do that. All you have to do is from your side seam line, go in by 1 inch or 1.5 inch at most. Okay, for your side to get your nipple to side measurement. I hope you understand what I'm saying. All right. If your own nipple to side is getting to your side seam, maybe like ½ inch, is remaining ½ inch to get to your side seam, that is too much. What you should do is from your side seam, go in by 1 inch to 1.5 inch. Okay, 1 inch to 1.5 inch. So now I've cut out my cup, I've cut out my pattern and everything. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to secure this part of the pattern, this yoke part, because I'm still going to need it to cut out the yoke for the front. Now this is my cup. I'm going to set it aside to work on it later. And now I am cutting out the body of the blouse. So just watch the way I am cutting out my pattern so that you don't make mistake when you're doing your own. Also, when you are cutting or before you cut, don't forget to label your pattern. It is very important so that you don't mix it up. So now let's work on our neckline, or yoke for the front. Now, actually when I was making this pattern, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the neckline. So I decided to do queen hand neckline kind of thing. So from the top, I came in by 4 inches. Then from the bottom, I did 2 inches from the armhole part, 2 inches. So I am connecting it like this with a straight line. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So for the neck width at the top, I did 4 inches. While at the down, from the armhole part, I came in by 2 inches to create my neck queen hand. And now I'm doing shoulder pinching. So this shoulder pinching, I did half of an inch. But after making the blouse, I realized the ½ inch I did was too small. So I could have done like 1 inch for this shoulder pinching. But if you want to play safe, you can decide to do this ½ inch. Then after you finish making the blouse, before you fix your sleeve, you can check if did not gape. If it gape, you can take it in more by sewing it. So one last thing I'm going to say is, let's say for example you want to do a full yoke, let's say you want to use illusion or chantilly or something. So this is what you are going to do. You need to replace the parts that is shorting on your yoke. You need to replace it. Just place extra paper, use your French cuff to smoothen it out, and you are good to go. But for me, I'm not using illusion, I'm not using anything like that. I just want to use my Ankara to create the queen hand neckline. And please don't forget to label your yoke as well. So now let's work on the back. Now for the back, the first thing I'm going to be doing is to mark out my neck width of 4 inches, which is the same thing that I use for the front. And notice that I mark it from the margin line. So for my neck depth, I decided to do just 2 inches and I measured it from my shoulder line like this, that is the margin line. So now I'm just going to go in with my French curve to create my neck curve. So you can take your time in doing this, no, but like there's no rushing to it. Just make sure you have a nice smooth curve. So after this, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to do my shoulder pinching. So I did 1/2 inch for the front. I'm going to be doing 1/2 inch for the back as well. So if you use 1 inch for the front, please go ahead and use 1 inch for your shoulder pinching for the back as well. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to eliminate back gaping. So I just came in by 1/2 inch on my neckline and I measured it from the Z-budge line, okay, 1/2 inch. Then I connected it straight into my waist point like this. So now I will need to remeasure what I have on this chest line to be sure I have my bust divided by 4 plus 1/2 inch is allowance. So if there is shortage, I replaced it and redraw my my armhole curve. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I am going to draw my blouse hem. For my blouse hem, from the waist on the side, I came down by 4.5. While on the center back, I came down by 5.5. And I'm going to use my French curve to connect it like this. So now, after drawing this line, I noticed that one of the dart leg is longer than the other. So I measured it and took care of the one that is shorter to make it equal. So that when I'm sewing, one is no longer than the other. Honestly, when I was making this pattern, I wasn't sure the exact style I want to make with this tutorial. All I know is that I want to show you guys how to do a cup corset. So I didn't think the style through before I started this tutorial. It was when I was making this tutorial, I started thinking, okay, let me do it this way, when do it that way. So that is why I decided to do just a single piece back. Like, unlike me doing something, separating it or something. But anyway, it still come out nice. So what I did here is to tighten my zip. Okay, tighten the zip. This further eliminates zip budge. So what I did is I took a total of 1/2 inch dart, that is 1/4 inch up, 1/4 inch down, just to eliminate my zip budge further. So usually you can do as much as a total of 1 inch darts, okay, but I don't know, for some reason I just decided to do a total of 1/2 inch darts to do my zip tightening, okay. You know, like I told you, I didn't think the style through. I was just more like I was freestyling. All what I had in my mind is I just want to do a tutorial on how to do a cup corset. So just take it as it is. So now I am done with my back piece as well. I am just going to cut out the pattern as it is, okay? So that is it for today's tutorial, guys. In my next tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to add fullness to your cup, how to make your bust cup look really cuppy. Yes, I'm going to be showing you everything that you need to do. So until then, stay fly, stay stylish. Bye bye.